Please state your name, your major, your year, and where you're from.
Okay, my name is Caleb Zuver. I'm a journalism and TCOM major here at Ball State. I'm a freshman, um, and I'm from Bryan, Ohio. It's about 20 miles from Michigan, 20 miles from Indiana. It's up in the northwest corner of the state. Grew always, never moved. Always been here my whole life.
Okay. And like, what is it like where your hometown is? Like, what was it like to live there? What was the diversity like there?
It's very rural, and there really isn't much diversity. There's a lot of cornfields. Farming's a huge thing up here, and so that's kind of like really white and not much diversity at all.
Yeah, and I know in the Thursday sessions, you kind of talked about how you had to like explain to your friends from your home some issues, especially in regards to Black Matter. So is that kind of the whole area is kind of like that, or?
Yeah, I would say so because I think part of the thing is that you know how it usually goes is, if your parents are one way, it's going to get passed on to the children. And I think, you see that up here where you have people, that have parents and stuff. And, they, a lot of them think the same way, and stuff just hasn't really changed around here. And, whether, I can have those conversations with my friends and they're okay with it, but I am usually, on my own in those conversations. So it can be hard at times.
Yeah, so it's not like a widespread thing that's talked about. It's very
Mhm.
homogenous and like focused around, I guess, the concept of whiteness as we've like.
Right.
So like, was this class big first time that you started talking about race and racism, or did you have
Yeah.
experience prior to it?
Yeah. I think for me, the only time I've had these conversations with people was with my sister, with my family. That was really the only time that I've had these conversations. But with like outside people, kind of strangers, honestly. I mean, didn't know anybody in the class or anything. We've had these discussions in class. It really was the first kind of branched out and had these things. And I really enjoyed it.
Like, what specifically did you enjoy about it?
I think for me, I enjoyed everybody's experiences that they brought to the class because I mean everybody had their different backgrounds, and their different experiences that they've had with it. Some people come from bigger towns than me and have had different experiences than I've had with race. I haven't had many, to be quite honest with you. Um, but and then other people, it's not the same for them. They've had a lot of experiences and they've had encounters of race, and I think it was just cool to hear those and discuss those, and helped the conversation go, and it was just good to hear different perspectives, I think, overall.
Yeah, would you say this class has like helped you in any way? Like, do you feel more equipped to talk about race, or I don't know, anything along
Absolutely. And
those lines?
I think that's what I wanted to kind of get out of the class, to be ready to have conversations with friends and family from around here, and beyond. And I think that's, exactly what happened. I think it absolutely helped me do that. I feel more prepared than ever because I feel like when I've had these conversations in the past, like I feel like I know what I'm talking about, but I didn't really ever provide, substance and facts and, things like that and
Yeah,
stuff to
like
back
you
it
had
up.
like the moral part of it.
Right. And I never could put
Yeah.
that together. And I think now this class has helped me kind of build myself where I have those things at my disposal in those conversations to kind of educate people because it's educated me.
Yeah, I think so with your journalism major, I would ask like how has the anti-racist like perspective in this class, like how is that going to help you moving forward?
Well, it's interesting, Ozzie, because you know my focus is kind of sports journalism. I want to go into sports journalism.
Okay.
It's not just mainstream, but the thing is, and I think this is going to help me in this way because we have seen athletes that have been more spoken about, you know, social justice issues and things that nature, paying attention to that for a while. And you know, an example would be like 4 years ago when people started kneeling for the national anthem. Originally, I was against that. I didn't like it like a lot of other people. But you know, as I learned and got educated, you know, I found it to be a peaceful form of protest. And I support it now. Um, but it's those types of things just learning because, you know, social justice issues now in sports are it's almost a part of the occupation now. Athletes have to be ready to answer those questions about those things and kind of take on that responsibility using their platform. And I think if I go into covering it, I got to be ready for that.
Yeah, I think also like I would say that there's a lot of diversity, specifically a lot of Black folks that are involved in sports. So, do you think like having an anti-racist slash more informed perspective will help you just cover sports in general?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's going to be huge. You know, and you're right about that. Like my favorite sport's the NBA, and they, out of any sport, they have the biggest uh, Black population within that, and you know, they're a league that's known for their stance on social justice issues. But I think that's just everything about this is going to help me cover those things because I think as time goes on, uh, activism within sports is only going to grow. And so
Yeah.
I think that, you know, this is going to help me cover those situations with honesty and, you know, in the way I see it.
And I don't know if you're like, I don't know how the journalism slash TCOM department works, but would you say like a lot of the other people that are in that major would be prepared to handle it like with the same, I guess, nuance or understanding that you've gained from this class?
So you're saying like if they didn't take this class?
Yeah, like would an average like TCOM major be able to, completely like have would it they have the same perspective that you have, or would it be different? Because I don't know the culture of any of those departments at all.
Right. I think a lot of it is, I'm sure they're more than capable. But I think I'm just gonna have this special advantage of, getting more educated. And I think, people are more than welcome to educate themselves on their own, and I'm sure people do that. But so far that I've known, I mean, it hasn't really been brought up, none of that stuff. So I can't really get a gauge on if that is a thing that people are focused on. But I guess I will say like there for professionals that are actually in the industry today, there are times where I do have trouble with the way they cover those types of things. And so, and like I said, this is going to help me, kind of fix that if I get out into that field and have success in that field. I think I can be ready for it.
Cool. Is there anything like in particular with this class that like have kind of like changed your perspective about like the event of this year, so, like the pandemic, activism, election, other things? Like, has this class kind of like changed your mind or like shaped your perspective on racism?
I think it hasn't changed anything. I just think it's further enforced some of the things that I've been thinking,
Hmm.
which is always good. But you know, this summer was really crazy, and I'm glad that I took this class when I did, especially after everything that happened, because it just gave me greater perspective. I wouldn't say that it changed anything, but like I said earlier, like haven't I had some conversations with people this summer, and I wasn't ready to have that backup and that substance to my arguments. And then this class comes in, and I really do feel like I have that now. And I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. I think like navigating the world is going to be a little bit different now that we have like this more well-informed um like vision, I guess. Um let's see. Is there like how would you like talk about the race relations and race issues at Ball State, particularly in your department? Because you talked about like them not having these conversations. And is that because it's like predominantly white, or is there, other reasons?
I think it is hard to say, and I think also not just I don't know. It's hard to say because this was a I'm a freshman. This was my first semester. It was a weird year. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what was missing from it. Stuff like that. Well, but I mean, for me, the conversations I had with people within my department, some of the content was never really about any of this stuff.
Hmm.
The only thing that I can closely relate it to is when we were talking about, different media outlets and how they do have their bias. That's about the only thing in like the way they do things, but that's about the only thing that has ever really come close to this type of content.
Do you think that it would be beneficial for the department to like, talk about race and racism, especially like in biases?
I absolutely think it would just for the simple fact that, if you don't, if you stray away from it, you never know what people are going to do. Like if they get out in the field, um, and make us slip up. We talked about microaggressions in this class, and it's like, that can happen at any time on a, personal level, but you definitely don't want it to happen on TV or something, and I think
Yeah.
just having it brought up, even if it's for a little bit, I think it can't do any harm. I don't think. It can only help. So I would like to see that. Like I said, this is only my first semester, and I have a long way to go. So who knows what's ahead, but we'll see.
And from what you've done, like in this class, do you think everyone should take a class like this?
Yeah, I do because it's such an important thing. It's such an important thing. Every lesson in this class was, you know, it was something new that you learned or further enforced something that you knew. I just think people have to just understand, and it is hard. I know it is hard to like kind of make this a rule, and it might set some people off, but I do think for the most part it benefited me, and I think it benefited a lot of other people in the class. And I think you'd be a step in the right direction just to educate people on what's going on.
Yeah, and I know like a lot of students complain about classes not being relevant or why should I take this class? It's not going to affect my everyday life. Like for this class, for me, it's definitely not that. Um, and like, I guess what's relevant that you will take with you out of this course?
So like what am I going to move forward with, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Um I think probably the biggest thing I took from it was really, I know I just talked about it, but the microaggression thing was huge for me because like I said, coming from Bryan, Ohio, uh it's not a very diverse community, and so when I do get out, in those communities, you know, making sure I'm not overstepping my boundaries that I've never really experienced before. I think that was huge for me. And that's something that I'm going to take with me for a long time. And I definitely think that was the one where I kind of opened my eyes a bit, like I need to be ready for this. Um, it has happened to me before where I have said something like that, but when I get out in those areas where I'm always around people like that, which I most likely will be in my field, I think that's going to be huge for me.
Yeah, I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't watch a lot of like sports TV or
Mhm.
anything, but like aren't most of the commentators like generally white or white passing?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
what
for
is
the
that
most part,
accurate?
yes.
Okay. I'm just curious
Yeah.
about that because like obviously that's going to affect how they cover sports.
Hmm.
Um, um, let's see. Are there any other like questions that's in the guide that you would like to address that I didn't cover?
Um,
Um, because I've been just kind of probing you on specific stuff. So I don't
yeah.
know if you want to like add anything else.
Well, I do like the question, like, where do you see Ball State, Muncie, Indiana, or US in 5, 10 years from now? Um, like the US, I probably say Ball State, Muncie. I just feel like I don't um have a big enough grasp on the community of Muncie. I didn't, it's a pandemic, so I
Yeah.
didn't like get out in the community much. But
Right.
as far as the US, like, I feel like we're at a time now where more people are educated than they really ever have been. I feel
Hmm.
like, and people are starting to wake up and realize these things. And so I think we're at like kind of a crossroads now where, we can keep pushing these things for people and to get educated, or we can kind of just stand still and say we're good enough. And so I guess I can't say where I see the US in 5 to 10 years, but I think like wherever we are in 5 to 10 years, we'll look back and say like this was the point where we made a decision on where we wanted to go. I feel like this summer and just,
Yeah.
everything that's happened in the past couple of years, I think this is the time it's going to be looked upon as like an advancement of some things or where we stood still.
Yeah, I think a lot of discussion right now is about the division and polarization of the United States. But I also think that it's more of like a culture, not a culture war, but that's like the phrase you hear a lot, where it's just, are we going to respect people or are we going
Hmm.
to, deny them their rights? And I think
Hmm.
that's currently where the conversation is. And 5 years from now, it's not a conversation anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to say, before we're done with this
Um,
interview?
I think last thing I'll say is just like one thing that I've learned just growing up here and um, just throughout my time is that like everybody has their different personal experiences, um, and I think they matter. But I think at the same time, on the flip side of that, it's important to hear what other people's experiences are, not just your own. And I think sometimes, as I come back here and I've been back home for 2 weeks, you know, it, whether it's the pandemic or race issues, stuff like that. I just think it's important for us to hear other people's experiences from different areas, not just what's happening in your hometown and not be isolated in a bubble. It's important to expand upon that, and I think that's something that in the future people definitely need to do more of is just listening and sympathizing with some people.
Yeah, do you think, with journalism, like, would you be interested in creating spaces for different perspectives? Like interviewing, specific like groups or anything like that? I know focusing on sports, but like,
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Ozzie, like I'm telling you, like just being a sports fan, like politics, not even just politics, it's human rights and social justice issues. They're more prevalent than they ever have been. And I said athletes have to take on the responsibility, but so will I if I get in that field. I have to be ready
right.
to do those types of things. So it goes hand in hand with the athletes and me, because that's a part of the journalist job now. It's
Yeah.
reporting on these things and giving quotes of what athletes said and interviewing different people about certain experiences they've had. So I think, for me, I'll definitely have to be innovative when it comes to that, and try to do something. And I think, if I hadn't taken this class, I don't think I would have thought much of that, but
Yeah.
because I took this, it's, it gets the ball rolling on some ideas for social justice and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know we talked about, specifically like this week's class, I asked about how we can change the greater narrative, about race and racism, and how we can push for America as a whole to be a more anti-racist country, and how that's kind of an American ideal. So I think that directly ties in with sports and journalism, is like the narrative that mainstream media pushes, or just any media in general. So awesome. This was great. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
I'm gonna
Ozzie.